Hello, tonight our centrepiece is Brian Eno talking about three of his favourite tracks. Yes, more of Mr. Eno. You may well have just listened to him giving a lecture at the Free Thinking Festival. Well, to celebrate that, we thought we'd dust down this recording we made in 1998, where his choice was very much what he was listening to at the time. It's fascinating. Around Mr. Eno, we have CD tracks by Lucas Simonis, Jeffrey Lewis, Ryan Teague, Jazzfinger, Tanya Tagak, Soweto Kinch and Richard Yeverling.
And we begin with Radio Thailand, a collection of collage tracks assembled and distilled from dozens of recordings of music played on the radio in guess where? Thailand. From Bangkok to Chiang Mai, in styles ranging from pop to traditional to very strange indeed, this double CD offers a remarkable education in the Thai musical sensibility. It's been put together by Alan Bishop and Mark Gergis, the man behind Porist. From CD 2, which Alan Bishop put together from shows broadcast between 1989 and 1995, this is a sequence titled Folk DJs Armed with Technology.
สั่งใจเสียงของคุณชวลีช่วงบิดครับ
โอ้ละเนาะแล้วปลาเอ้ยแก้มเจ้าปลามาแต่หน้าหิวมกปลาซิวดำแม่เฒ่าขอกินน้ำเจ้าเหลือกตาใสอยู่มันบัดนี้ฟังกันเหตุก่อนจะเฝ้าเดือดร้อนตีขารักกันฟังเอาถอนโอวาทว่าท่ากันเป็นว่าศาสดาของเราเกิดมาใสแจงนับแต่องค์พระโตเจ้าเอาตนล่วงเกิดจากกำเนิดแต่พระศรีถาดเจ้าทรงตั้งแห่งขันพระแม่นั้นเรียกชื่อมายาแล้วก็สัตตาเราในกะบินสู่สุดโทเจ้าข้าเนาในห้องนั่งร่างตั้งภูเกิดได้7 มื้อแล้วมาได้แก้วจากนี้ไผต่อ4แม่ซื้อพิมพ์ผ้าบุตรน้ำล่าหุนเกิดมาแทนเสือพระสิจัดเจ้าเน่าในนักเรศปาโลเพศเทวทูตเกิดขึ้นตรงหน้าต่อพระองค์ศรีถาดเจ้าบังเกิดจะสลดกันเดี๋ยวหนึ่งแกงขึ้นในชันนาและกัตกามาแล้วก็บินเบื้องไปทรงพานวดบวชไปพระอยู่ได้ตัดเต่าเกศผมเดินแต่เต่าหาโมกะทำโมบ่ได้หกที่ไปซองงานเห็นหูครับเอามันทหามรณะหนีจากกันอันนึกพระองค์คิดฟังหูข้าพเจ้าแบ่งไข่แล้วจึงได้สอนสังสาวกปัญจวัคคีย์น้ำเห็นน้อมทำน้ำหมูปูตุชนน้อมหมู่ประทัมโมเทเป็นในผลแจมแจงของเสือศาสนาอันใดหกเราผู้เกิดคือภิกษุณีสามเณรีต่อเมื่อกระเดียงดาวพันละหน้าได้พรรษาหลายหลาก45บอกตัวประมวลไว้ใส่กันทำทานนั้น80,000ธรรมกันทำทานนั้น80,000ธรรมกันผู้มีปัญญาญาณทองเห็นเอาใดนับแก่องค์พระโตเจ้าสอนจนในโลกศาสนาว่าไว้ในส่วนล้วนไปนับอันใด6,000 ปีทำของตถาคตจังสิผลเสียงเดี๋ยวนี้เสียงคนย่องบูชาพระบาทสุตรัตนะ
ปืดนี่
โอ้ยคือว่าลำต่อละครับ
ให้ก็ล่ำบ่
เอาไง
อ๋อจังพ่อเป็นคนอีสานอาหารชอบแมงกิโนนเคยกินแล้วแม่แก้มจุนพูนแมงกิโนนและอีสานบ้านเฮาหากน้องได้ชิมหากเธอได้ริมรสนั้นไม่เบากินน้ำแดงนี่กินน้ำตะเมาหากเขาเจ้ากินไม่ลืมเลยหากเจ้าจริงทำไมว้าย
โอ้ มาฟังน้องสุวรรณจันแจ้งกันต่อไปละของสุวรรณจันแจ้งบอกคือ
Well, that was folk DJs armed with technology. That's what Alan Bishop called it. He and Mark Gergis have put together this quite fascinating double CD called Radio Thailand, culled from transmissions from various Thai radio stations between 1989 and 2005.
It's great. It sounds like it really was recorded by just sticking a microphone and turning the dial. Is that what they did?
Yeah,
or have they sort of faked it to sound like that?
No, I think that they've just accepted whatever audio quality they had to hand, and it's quite variable. I mean, it goes from relatively lo-fi to something which sounds like a reasonably good FM broadcast.
Do you think that's what we sound like to listeners in Thailand?
Who knows? But it does just go to show what kind of rather quaint ideas we have about authenticity in world music, because some of this stuff is just extraordinarily synthetic sounding. They drag things from all over the place and make the most incredible tapestry out of them.
So when you listen to the CD, is it like listening to the radio?
No, not really. It's more like spinning the dial on the radio, or listening to a bit, then spinning onto something else.
Right, Dutch guitarist Lucas Simonis has a new album out, and for someone who's visited the outer reaches of rock with some of his bands with names like Morzelpronk, his new album Stotz is a bit of a surprise. Lucas describes it as an outsider's take on electroacoustic composition. It's witty, concise, and if you listen carefully, you'll hear some chunks of guitar. All the song titles are in a secret language, apparently, so this one is called Kaluni S. Actually, you can hear quite a lot of guitar in it, can't you? That was Lucas Simonis, Kaluni S, from his album Stots, S-T-O-T-S, which is on the Z6 label. It doesn't hang around this album. There are 16 tracks. They're all shorter than 4 minutes, and they're all pretty much like that, very energetic with cut-up guitars and vocals.
The question mark is, what on earth are stots?
Well, I said it's in an imaginary language, so I imagine that is a word from it.
Yes, OK, it's in an imaginary language, and it means what?
No idea.
We don't know.
He doesn't tell us. But just looking at the album, the songs or the tracks have titles like Hillig, Ipeza, Semaji Amgi. I've got no idea what they all mean.
Oh, well, come back to us.
Sounds like a Plaid album.
Come back to us when you've done your research properly, please. This next piece I found on a CD of tributes to Daniel Johnston, the cultish, ultra-naive American singer-songwriter adored by David Bowie, Kurt Cobain and others. Well, Jeffrey Lewis is another big fan, and with his background in New York's anti-folk scene, he's in a good position to take on Johnston's whimsical compositions. Here he is, administering a good hiding to Adventures of God as a Young Boy.
These are the adventures of God as a young boy. When he was young, he would venture out into the jungle to see what he could see. There wasn't any prehistoric monster that wasn't scared of him. He was the strongest, the most victorious of the jungle. One day, he looked into the sky and he saw a spaceship of weird MTV viewers who had ventured from the future. They wanted to know what kind of music he liked. And out popped giant guitars and giant amplifiers, and he started playing the rock and roll music, shaking the very corners of the earth. And the world broke open, and the volcanoes erupted, and he yelled at the sun, and the sun got hot. And the dinosaurs could not get away. Everything was in disarray. In the volcanic math of a new beginning, he planted some seeds, and up grew a new kind of youth, a new kind of existence. And he took from the evil what they had stolen, and he broke their backs, and he broke their skulls, and he broke their living in two. And all the evil adventurers from the future heard about the MTV killing and zeroed in to stop what they thought was a young god. And the young god he was God himself, and he lifted himself up into the sky, and he smashed their spaceships. And he destroyed all the evil empire from the future, and burned them to hell. In the quiet of the evening, God would dream fantastic dreams of a place where there was no pain and sorrow, a place more further away than tomorrow, a place where we could all rest, a place where we could all go, those of us who make it there.
Jeffrey Lewis there singing Adventures of God as a Young Boy, and that's one of 21 tracks on an album called I Killed the Monster, and it's all covers of the songs of Daniel Johnston, songs such as Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Your Grievances, Worried Shoes, and my particular favourite, Walking the Cow.
And are they all sung by...
No, they're all different people. So you've got Joy Zipper is on one track, Daniel Smith and Sufjan Stevens is on another. They're not particularly well known, at least not to UK listeners, but... it's quite an enterprising collection of covers is some of them, I think, are a little bit too respectful and a bit too musical. I mean, I think they're better when they take the rather more scrappy approach that Geoffrey Lewis does.
I like that, because it was almost like two songs in one. You had that sort of acoustic picking guitar with the organ and the song, and then in the background you had this bizarre noise guitar flittering around. It was an odd combination. Right, you may remember the Cambridge-based composer Ryan Teague from his last album called Six Preludes. He fused large-scale contemporary classical textures with electronica. Well, he's got a new one out. It's called Coins and Crosses, and it continues his quest. He's now joined by the Cambridge Philharmonic Orchestra and the harpist Rodri Davis, and the whole album has a much bigger budget feel. It sounds like a very superior cutting-edge film music. Ryan Teague pays great attention to very subtle textures and single sounds. From the album Coins and Crosses, this is Tableau 2. Moody stuff, eh? That was Ryan Teague, Tableau 2, from his new album Coins and Crosses, which is on the Type label. There are 9 tracks on this. 6 Preludes was an EP, in fact. And there's even one, the centrepiece of this album is Fantasia for Strings, which is just for string orchestra.
Very tasteful. Excellent choice. Now, just before Brian Eno's 50th birthday in May 1998, we invited him into the Mixing It studio to talk about his choice of 3 songs that he particularly loved. We're revisiting this now in tandem with the keynote speech you may have heard earlier, which Eno gave as an introduction to the Free Thinking Festival, which is taking place at Liverpool this weekend. I asked Eno first where he found the music he listened to for his personal enjoyment.
I find it in all sorts of strange ways. For instance, somebody came up to me in Portobello Road with a tape the other day and gave it to me, and it turns out to be one of the best things I've heard for a couple of years. So sometimes I hear things because people think I ought to listen to them or think I would be interested in them, and very often they're right. People seem to know my taste quite well, and so I get to hear about things because people direct them towards
And
me.
how would you describe your taste?
Well, I suppose I'm always finding myself interested in things that sort of seem to occupy a new musical space, either something that you've never heard before, you've really never heard anything like it, or else it can be a combination of things that you've heard individually or separately before. Suddenly they're put together in a way that is really very striking.
So is it difficult choosing your 3 favourite pieces?
They're not my 3 favourite pieces. I've sort of broken that rule. Rather than do a kind of Desert Island Discs, choosing from the whole life of listening,
Because you've done that.
because I've done it, and it's very, very difficult indeed. What I thought I would do is work with 2 simple rules. First of all, I would choose things that were quite contemporary, and secondly, I thought I would choose things that came from other cultures. So I've got something from Germany, something from Japan, and something from America.
So which is the first one?
First one I'll play is a German record. This was a case of something that was given to me. A friend of mine has a design company in Frankfurt. One of the guys in the design company made this record. The record is called Slop Shop, and the band is called Macrodelia. On the other hand, it could be that the band is called Slop Shop and the record is called Macrodelia. But I think his name is Peter Schwalm.
And what's the track?
The song is called Fast Age. This guy has said that he's very impressed by 70s Miles Davis, I would say. So this thing is sort of on the cusp of jazz. It's a computer-made piece, I believe, with players mixed in. So it borrows from techno and all that sort of thing. And I think it's a very unusual and beautiful piece.
Well, that was one of Brian Eno's choices. Brian, what was that called?
Fast Age. This space that this guy has discovered here, this Miles Davis techno-funk, I guess is what you'd call it, is really something new, I think.
When you get given something like that, do you actually follow it up? Have you been in contact with him since to say that you liked it?
Yes, I wrote him a letter saying that I thought it was the best thing I'd heard for weeks. I could have said months, but I didn't want him to get big-headed about it.
This collision of techno and jazz is something that one does hear creeping in around the edges of music. It seems to be quite a profitable area of experiment at the moment.
I think it's because the techno thing has concentrated mostly on rhythm so far, and it's been very interesting in terms of what it's done with rhythms and beats, but it hasn't really done much melodically. And I think now what people are starting to discover that those very strong beats can carry very strange music.
You said you'd chosen from different countries. What's the next choice?
Next one is Japanese. This is a band called Geodesic, and this record is called Low Bit Life. And the song we're going to hear, Terrorist. This is another really good example of something that people have only been able to do well in music quite recently, which is extreme cut-up. So what you're hearing here are lots of little samples and tiny little bits and pieces of sound which are getting cut up and shuffled and reshuffled. And in this case, the effect is something between ominous and hilarious, I think.
Brian Eno's second choice there was J.R. Disick playing a track called Low Bit Life.
Well, actually, that track is called Terrorist. That record
Terrorist.
is called Low Bit Life.
The record's called Low Bit Life.
When you listen to this sort of thing, does it influence the music that you make?
I suspect it does, not in a completely direct way, like I'm not likely to go and make something like that. But it certainly enlarges the vocabulary. It certainly makes you think that you can take some risks that you may not have thought otherwise.
In relation to that track, though, Brian, I mean, this sort of extreme cut-up that you were describing is an evolution of the kinds of things that you started off doing as a teenager with tape loops, isn't it? Is this a direction that you might have taken yourself?
I suppose if samplers had come along a little bit earlier than they did, I might have done that. Because when I was doing that kind of thing, I had to actually cut all the tape and do it all by hand, and it was very, very tedious. And by the time I had made a few things like that, I was so thoroughly sick of the whole idea that...
What's your third choice?
My third choice takes us to Nashville. This is Emmylou Harris, who's, of course, a great country singer. She made a record with Daniel Lanois producing it. Dan I'd worked with quite a lot on various U2 records. What you have is Emmylou singing in a beautiful country voice over these very dark, weird backgrounds that Dan put together. I thought this was really the next big step for country music. On this particular track, which is a Jimi Hendrix song called May This Be Love, there's just Emmylou, Dan playing guitars, which are essentially the only other instruments, and Larry Mullen playing drums.
Nothing can go wrong.
Emmylou Harris and the cover of the Jimi Hendrix song May This Be Love. Brian, the guitar effect in that was interestingly Hendrix-like in itself, and you were saying that you actually may have invented it.
I invented this treatment which makes things sound like they're backwards. So instead of sound going bing and fading out, it goes and fades up. And I suspect that's what Dan used on this, because I've given him a copy of that treatment. We often swap things like that.
So do you often recognise things of your own on other people's records?
I, of course, recognise samples sometimes.
As does your lawyer, no doubt.
But I also recognise individual types of sound sometimes.
And do you mind that?
No, I absolutely enjoy it. I take it as pure flattery.
And what will you go away and listen to tonight?
Gosh, that's a hard question. What I have been listening to again recently is an Underworld record, Second Toughest in the Infants, which I like very, very much. I was just talking to Carl Hyde from Underworld and said, what you need is backing vocals, and I'm the man to do them.
Brian, thanks very much for coming on.
Okay, thank you.
That was Underworld, and a track from their Second Toughest in the Infants album, ending our discussion with Brian Eno about, well, it was supposed to be his favourite 3 records, but it ended up being sort of 3.5, which we let him have because it was his 50th birthday after all.
Makes me want to go and listen to that Underworld album again, hearing that snippet there. Right, Jazzfinger, the Newcastle-based duo of Ben Jones and Has Gailani, take lo-fi to new highs, or maybe that should be lows. Their new album, Autumn Engines, is recorded live to cassette, so there's plenty of hiss and noise. I must say sometimes I wish there wasn't, because their improv compositions are often very delicate and atmospheric, like this lovely piece called Dreams Cast Shadows. That was Jazzfinger, Dreams Cast Shadows, from their new album Autumn Engines, and they are Hass Gelani and Ben Jones, and on this album they're joined by Ben Wilkinson and Sarah Sullivan. It says, all music recorded live through the air to 2-track. Actually, the hiss didn't bother me too much. I think the thing about this is that when recorded live to cassette, there's not a lot of bottom end. You don't get, because a lot of their music is drone based. You don't get that real sort of deep, I don't know, the sub bass noises you want with the drones. It's the cassette doesn't.
So do you think they're selling themselves short then by recording in this lo-fi way?
Well, I'd love to hear that piece, for example, recorded direct to CD.
Well, maybe we should get them in to show us how they could do it in a Maida Vale studio. We'll have to take that up with our producer at some later date. Now, here's a duet featuring the Inuk throat singer Tanya Tagak Gillis and Björk, a combination of primal grunts, breathy shrieks, and some actual singing, which offers a few hints as to why the Andrews sisters went out of fashion. It's from Tanya Tagak's new CD, Si Na, an unusually well-recorded collection of mainly a cappella, often improvised songs, which try to sound like just about anything other than conventional tunes. Tanya Tagak-Gillis and Björk. She actually, Tanya Tagak, that is, records under the simple name of Tagak, and that's a track called Ancestors from her new album Sinar. It's the only track on the album in which she sings with Björk, which Björk also co-produced on that track.
Their voices complement each other very well. Right. On now to the British saxophonist and MC Soweto Kinch. She's got a new album out. In fact, it's a concept album. It's called A Life in the Day of B19, Tales of the Tower Block. It's about the residents of a tower block, and Kinch plays 3 or 4 of the main characters, and the whole thing is narrated by the newsreader Moira Stewart. The album's a dazzling collage of jazzy compositions, voices and sound effects, and great stories. This is a perfect example. It's about a visit to the job centre. It's called 10:30 Appointment.
Give me a break, slow down a minute, just wait. I don't think you really relate. I'm trying to get ahead. Just give me some space. Fix your ears, fix your ears. I'm trying to break with the trends. I'm greater than them. 4 paper clips, staples and pens. Our mission will end. No, she better make some amends. Fix your ears, fix your ears.
Honestly, he's lied again. He's always at least half an hour late. I'm gonna have to refer him to head office. I'll be having strong words with him when he finally gets here. You know, that guy wants to be a rapper. Or some type of jazz guy. You know what he's playing at, honestly.
Oh, that's my number. Oh, man, I'm so late. I'm really sorry I'm late. I just got distracted. Look, here, take my ticket.
First, take off your jacket. Have a seat. Let me take a look at your plan.
I'd rather pace up and down with a mic in my hand. It helps me relax if I'm in an imaginary jam. Hyping up the crowd, rapping like a battering ram.
Look, just calm down, okay?
Yo, why's
Have
everyone
a seat.
looking at me funny?
You've been out of work for 6 months. What have you been doing?
Keeping up to date with all my rent installments. And verbally weight training for 4 months. Take my card and guarantee a flawless performance.
No thanks, I'll just take your national insurance. I remember you from last fortnight. You're the MC.
Yeah.
Well, you're late again. You're gonna have to do something about
I'm a head top lyricist with amazing pace, smashing up competition like breaking plates. Substandard MCs just to fade the place.
Let me just run a job search with the database. Okay. Have you been in any training over the past year at all? Let's have a look at your options. There's so many more opportunities now for further education.
Tragically, they don't have battle MC academies, but when they do, they'll employ me on the faculty. I have a large room and they'll pay me a large salary. Expelling rappers just for trying to challenge me.
To slow down. Okay. Let's think, do you have any relevant qualifications or something that employers might find useful besides just rapping?
Let me see. Making a tune, entertaining the room. I take an average track and just make it improve. Take a whack CD and lyrically break it in 2. Ride beats like 2 cowboys, taming a mule. Construct tracks that stand like tables and stools. Burn all tracks without leaving traces of fuel. As a small summary of what I'm able to do. And maybe youth training in schools. Rapping on the web, snapping phone cables in 2. Spit a freestyle while spinning 2 plates on a broom. Shut myself in a crypt for 7 days in a room. Escape through 4 shoes of battle-capable crews.
That wasn't what I meant. Just give me some specific skills that I can enter into the computer.
Oh, you want skills?
Get started.
Okay, skills. I got skills.
Alright.
I got a lyrical left foot that's very precise. Make MCs tense up like it's penalty strikes. Got a big drawer full of gold medals and mics. I'm just too dark, I ain't taking any advice. Anyway, you just get me the clean floors for $3.75.
No, it's not the case. It's gone up to $4.33 an hour. Look.
That ain't no money.
Floor maintenance clerk in Bordsley Green. Bordsley Green.
$4.33 for scarring my knuckles permanently. Catching a bus with holes in my old dirty jeans. I'll be better broker in professional burglary. Rapping or something else just occurred to me. I could make cash sums from an injury claim. So all the MCs in the world with a similar name. Buy a civilian plane or go live in the Ukraine. Own the farm and then start my own property chain.
Let's just have a look at what comes up under MC, shall we? Let's have a look at
MC.
Alright, have a look at the screen.
Okay.
What have we got?
Micro cosmeticist, medieval transgenicist, muscular calisthenicist, micromedical chemicist, media columnist, neo-Marxian communist, managerial economist, modern criminologist. Yeah, but what about hip-hopicist?
Sorry, it's not on the list. It does not exist. You're gonna have to start thinking. Let's put your thinking cap on, shall we?
Look, I know this guy who was poor, just like me. All he had for food was dumplings and fried beans. Started writing rhymes and selling his EP. Now he drives his big Benz and he gets to fly for free.
Well, that's very nice, whoever he might be. But I'm sure he wasn't from Birmingham, from B19.
You don't know me. None of you respect the name. I could rhyme with my feet over a naked flame. Point rhymes at the wind currents that make it change. Smash tracks like derailing trains, shaking planes, drive a tank while changing lanes. Yo,
Please keep your voice down, please, and calm down.
I rap dirty like mud guards and pitchforks. Hit hard like capital gains windfalls. Human ears can't hear, all you hear is a big pause. Dogs bark and bats crash into brick walls. I'm so dark, each lyric is insured. Covering death, starting fires and ink wars. I'm so heavy, I press play and sink floors. Start rhymes, simultaneously breaking 6 laws.
Look, if you don't come up with any sensible suggestions, you're just gonna have to type the first job that comes up on the screen. Is that clear? Now just plan it out. Just think about it.
Now see here, I ran for the bus in a rush to be here. I ain't sweeping roads and cleaning toilets for 3 years. I got bills and cold weather to live through. My flat's damp and my son's allergic to mildew.
You don't have any children.
But what about what I will do? Let me continue. I'm not just waiting indoors. I had an idea for verses, creating a storm. Now I've forgotten all those fresh lyrics before. Cause I've been sitting here while you filling in forms.
Look, there's no need to be rude, okay? There's a lot of people waiting behind you. I'll book you in for an appointment next Thursday. Is that gonna be
Next
all right?
week, you won't see me again. Take my autograph just before this meeting will end. Call my manager, yo, we're not speaking again. Go to HMV, buy my CDs for your friends.
Okay, suit yourself. You can't leave with my pen. Come back. Fine. Okay. Alright then. Some people, honestly. You try and help them, you try and
Give me a
save
break,
them away.
slow down a minute, just wait. I don't think she really relates. I'm trying to get ahead.
If it doesn't start
Give
like
me
this,
some space, fix her ears,
I'll try and
fix
save the
your
losses.
ears. Fix your ears, fix your ears, fix your ears, gotta fix your ears. And I take some cotton wool buds and scrub them out. What's wrong with these people, man? Like they're deaf, they just can't hear. I can't get my point across. All the rhymes, the practice. Nobody hears me, man. Nobody gets it. I haven't even got bus fare back to my flat.
Absolutely brilliant. That's Soweto Kinch, 10:30 appointment from his new album, A Life in the Day of B19. B19, of course, is a postcode district of Birmingham. Tales of the Tower Block. This is the first part of a 2-CD set. Part 2 draws near, he says. Every word, action and movement happens along the course of one normal Birmingham day. If you'd like details of that album or anything that we've played in tonight's show, you can find the information on our playlist, which you can get in the usual ways. You can look us up on CFAX, page 652. You can write to us, mixing at BBC Broadcasting House, London, W1AA. Or you can email us, mixing.it@bbc.co.uk. And of course, there is the website, bbc.co.uk/Radio 3. You can go to the Listen Again section, listen to this show for the next week. Don't forget the new music message board, add your comments and suggestions, and the playlist will be up there.
And we leave you with the travelling Swedish musician Rickard Jäverling, who plays a beguilingly simple but stylish kind of art folk music. What we're going to play you is the title track of his album 2x5 Lullaby, and it features one of the most accurate recordings of the pouring rain that I've ever heard. Very apt for the time of year, I'm sure you'll agree. Now, there's no programme next week owing to Radio 3's coverage of the London Jazz Festival, but Mixing It is back on Friday the 17th of November with live sets by Supernumerary and Tom Q recorded at the Free Thinking Festival in Liverpool. Until then, good night.
Good night.
2x5 Lullaby by Richard Yeveling. Mixing it was presented by Mark Russell and Robert Sandel, and the producer was Felix Carey.